Right, Phil Neville's now named women's England manager. Been some controversy. His lack of experience being one. The comments he made on Twitter over 6 years ago being another, and he has apologised for that. And some of the media being, I think, the FA's remit was to try and get a woman coach who was English, and the women's coaches they interviewed, including Mo Marley, all said no. And a lot of ex-players are saying we want a woman. In my eyes, the best person for the job, regardless of gender, should get the job. Hey, look, for a positive, he's English and he's young and he's willing. In my eyes, that's enough for me. And his sister is the women's netball coach for this country. So if he needs to get advice, he can quite happily go, sis, what advice would you give me? Plus, he's been an assistant for David Moyes and his brother Gary, and he's part of the class of '92. So he was coached by a damn good manager in Sir Alex Ferguson. I think he's got a better understanding of the game than we give him credit for, and he's been involved in the game for most of his life. It's not as if he's just got his coaching badges. He's played the game at a high level, and he seems much more calm than most people. He's not one of these shouty people, and we know a lot about him anyway. We know a lot about his background, where he's from, and what he's about. Mark Sampson, we didn't. So for once, we've got a high-profile name in English football, women's football. Let's go with it. Let's see where it leads us. It might encourage more interest in the women's game, which is what I'm going to go on about in this video. I'm not going to talk much about Phil Neville. Locally, in my local area, other sports are getting far more female involvement, and I'm going to mention one of them, ice hockey. I go on about ice hockey a lot, and people on this channel know that I am an ice hockey fan. But my local ice hockey team have a very good women's team as well. In Bracknell, the Queen Bees. Very successful, very good. Every match night, a lot of the staff working the nights, the volunteers, the stewards, women. Then, the match night coordinators are women. Some of the mascots are from the girls' youth teams. The supporters club is chaired by a woman. Her assistant chairman is a woman. Part of the ownership group, women. So, already, I've named a sport locally where there's a lot of female involvement, be it fan base, players, administrators, staff, volunteers, owners. Straight away. Local women's football in Bracknell, don't see much of it. I know there's a team in Sandhurst, which is obviously where the Royal Military Academy is, officer training at Sandhurst. There is a women's team there. I do know some people who play for it. Outside that, I've got a couple of mates who play for youth level teams in the Bracknell area. One of those teams they play for is now folded. That's what I do know. One of my mates used to do some refereeing. She had to give it up. She gave it up. She lost interest. She still loves the sport, but she's lost interest in playing and reffing. So there's your problem. Grassroots level women's football and youth football. I do live near a lot of facilities where you can go on an AstroTurf, play for either side. We've got a lot of parks in this town. We've got a lot of open space where you can have a kickabout. And the youth teams and even the adult, Bracknell Town and Bracknell Cavaliers, the adult teams, do use the local facilities for training, be it parks or AstroTurfs. Here's a problem. Big problem that we have. When my mates were playing, I used to watch them play. There used to be several girls' age level teams and women's teams playing on the Sunday leagues. There's one now that I'm aware of that trains. There is one. The local rugby club has a women's team and youth level teams. The ice hockey team, as I mentioned, has a youth level structure and a women's main team. Figure skating is another sport that is very popular in this town, and field hockey as well in the summer. So there are other sports that already actively involve women positively. There's your problem. I don't know what it's like nationwide. What I'm talking about is locally. If each local community has the similar issue outside of the big towns and cities, so these smaller towns like your Bracknells, like your Dorchesters, because my dad used to play for Dorchester Town back in the 70s. He used to play youth level, then he played for the first team a couple of games before he joined the army. So I'm using regional little towns, market towns, towns or small cities that aren't got your Premier League clubs in, or your main Football League clubs. So we'll have to go any town in Devon outside of Exeter and Plymouth, basically. So Taunton, for example, it's more of a rugby town. You've got to look at, I don't know, up north. Is there more of a demand up north for women's football? I don't know what it's like nationally, But what I can say locally is less and less girls seem to be taking up having a kick about. The five-a-side leagues around here, all men's teams. There's no women's five-a-side tournament. That's a way to get interest. Women's five-a-side. The men's five-a-side is every wall, every lamppost has at some point throughout the year a five-a-side advert stapled on it, going set up a team, get interested. We have billboards, we have banners all over the place for five-a-side. A lot of the pubs support a pub league. Some of the pubs don't no longer, have a team, but most of the pubs around here have a pub team. The pub league, again, all men. There's your issue. Going back to Phil Neville, it would have been nice to see a women's manager with a women's team, but when your main candidate Mo Marley turns down, and then the 3 Super League women's managers also said no, we'll rather stick with our clubs and extend our contract to our clubs. There's another problem. There's only 4 women's managers that I could think of. I can't name the 3 of them in the Women's Super League because they're not well known, but there's only 4 who are available to be interviewed, who are English. There's your problem. There's not enough women coaches and there's not enough involvement at grassroots level. Simple. Anyway, that's why Phil Neville's the new women's manager. Regardless of what you think of him and his qualifications, if the women aren't there to do the job, you're going to be disappointed. The best way to grow it is grassroots. I don't think the FA are growing it at grassroots well enough, because they're only targeting the big urban areas. They're not targeting the smaller towns where we could have quite talented girls playing in the youth levels or the local women's team. The team folds, they give up. Just because we're not a city of the size of Birmingham doesn't mean there isn't an interest. But what I'm seeing is girls are giving up the sport and going to other sporting activities or giving up sport entirely. If you want to grow the game, you've got to keep the interest of these girls and women as fans. Because I look at other sports and they're doing far better at it. Far better at it. With community involvement. Involving them in sport. I look at ice hockey and they've done it brilliantly from the start. They don't need some governing body to do a drive. It's the clubs doing the drives. They worked out very quickly. There's an interest here. Look at the fans turning up. Let's set up a women's team. Let's see what they're like. And they enjoyed it. Without getting that community involvement, we're not going to find out. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, place your comments below, and I'll have some more videos for you soon.